There is something deep inside you that refuses to be still. No matter how much you try to quiet it, ignore it, or bury it beneath the distractions of life, it lingers. It's a stirring, a restlessness, a yearning that cannot be satisfied by mere success, comfort, or routine. You look around and see others content with the ordinary, content to build their lives, achieve their goals, and settle into the rhythm of the world. But for you, it is different. There's something more, something beyond what your hands can touch and your eyes can see. Perhaps you have felt it since childhood, an unshakable sense that your life was meant for something beyond the common path. Or maybe it crept in slowly in the quiet moments, in the pauses between obligations, in the space where the noise of the world could not reach. It whispers to you in the stillness, there is more. And the more you try to silence it, the louder it grows. You have searched for answers. You have tried to fill the void with achievements, relationships, even distractions, but nothing quite satisfies. Because those who are chosen for something greater cannot be content with the lesser. The temporary can never replace the eternal. The fleeting joys of this world may offer brief relief, but they cannot quiet the call that was placed upon your soul before you took your first breath. And I tell you, this stirring is not an accident. It is not the product of overthinking or wishful dreaming. It is divine. It is the echo of something placed within you by the one who formed you. It is the evidence that you were never meant to walk an ordinary path. The world may not recognize it. People may not understand it. You may even doubt it yourself at times, but it remains. It remains because it is the thread that connects you to a purpose beyond yourself. And yet here is where many falter. Here is where doubt creeps in. You wonder if you are simply imagining it, if you are chasing something that will never be. You question why, if you were truly called, life seems so uncertain, so difficult, so full of unanswered prayers. But listen to me now. Those who are chosen are often led through seasons of discomfort, through times of waiting, through places where nothing makes sense. Why? Because a purpose greater than yourself requires a faith greater than yourself. And faith is not built in ease. It is forged in the fire of restlessness, in the tension between what is and what is yet to come. That stirring inside you is not meant to frustrate you. It is meant to awaken you. It is meant to move you beyond the safe, beyond the expected, beyond the ordinary. It is a divine invitation to trust, to step forward even when the path is unclear, to believe that the one who called you has already prepared the way. And so I ask you today, what will you do with it? Will you continue to push it aside, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect confirmation? Or will you dare to believe that the very restlessness you feel is the confirmation you have been seeking? Because those who are chosen are not given a map, they are given a stirring, a holy discontent, a longing that will not let them go. And it will not let you go, because you were never meant to stay where you are. You were meant to rise. You were meant to follow. You were meant for something greater. It's easy to believe that if you were chosen for something great, life would be easier, that doors would fly open, that opportunities would line up, that the path would be smooth and clear. But if you look at the lives of those who were called before you, those who carried a divine purpose, you will see a different pattern. You will see hardship. You will see opposition. You will see moments where everything seemed to fall apart. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've been walking through a season of trial that you don't understand. Maybe you've faced setbacks that make no sense. You've prayed, you've waited, you've done everything you know to do, and still the storm rages on. You've questioned why. Why? If you are truly called, does it feel like everything is working against you? But I want you to hear this today. The trials you face are not signs that you've been abandoned. They are signs that you are being prepared. Because those who are chosen are not given an easy road. They are given a refining fire, a breaking, a reshaping, a molding that prepares them for the weight of the calling placed upon them. Look at Joseph, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, forgotten by those he helped, yet he was being positioned. Look at Moses, exiled to the wilderness for 40 years before he ever stood before Pharaoh. Look at David, anointed as king but forced to hide in caves before he ever wore the crown. Every great calling comes with great refining. And the trials you face, they are not here to destroy you. They are here to strengthen you, to deepen your dependence on God, to prepare you for what is ahead. Because if you are called to lead, you must first learn to follow. If you are called to bring healing, you must first understand pain. If you are called to build, you must first know what it means to be torn down. It may not feel like it now, but the very things that seem to be breaking you are the things that are making you. The waiting is building endurance. The opposition is strengthening your resolve. The loneliness is drawing you closer to the only one who can truly sustain you. And when the time is right, when the preparation has done its work, the doors will open. Not because you forced them open, but because you were made ready to walk through them. And so I ask you, will you trust the process? Will you trust that what feels like delay is not denial? Will you trust that the pain, the trials, the moments when you feel like giving up are not proof that you have been forgotten, but proof that you have been chosen? Because those who are called do not walk an easy road, but they walk a road that leads to purpose, to impact, to something far greater than they could have imagined. And if you are in the fire right now, if you are facing trials that you don't understand, take heart, because it is in the breaking that God does his greatest work. It is in the struggle that he shapes the ones he has called. And when the time comes, when the preparation is complete, you will stand on the other side of this trial and know you were never being abandoned. You were being prepared. There comes a time in the life of every person chosen for a greater purpose when they begin to feel set apart. It's not something they asked for, it's not something they even wanted, but suddenly the places that once felt familiar don't feel the same anymore. The people they used to walk with begin to walk in a different direction. Conversations that once interested them now feel empty. And then comes the silence. The long stretches of loneliness, the quiet seasons where it feels as though they have been hidden away. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you've been walking through a season where you feel unseen, unnoticed, forgotten. You try to connect, but something is different. You try to go back to the way things were, but nothing fits the same way it used to, and you wonder if something is wrong with you. You wonder why you feel so out of place, why the things that used to satisfy you no longer do. But hear me when I say this. You are not being rejected. You are being set apart. Because when God calls someone, he doesn't immediately send them out. He sets them apart first. He pulls them into a place of solitude, a place where the noise of the world begins to fade, where the opinions of people no longer hold the same power. And in that quiet place, he begins to do his greatest work. He strips away the distractions. He refines the heart. He teaches you to hear his voice above all others. Look at the lives of those who were called before you. Look at Moses, who spent years in the wilderness before he ever stood before Pharaoh. Look at Elijah, hidden by a brook, fed by ravens before he called down fire from heaven. Look at Jesus himself, drawn into the wilderness before stepping into his ministry. Isolation is not a sign that you have been abandoned. It is a sign that you have been chosen. But it doesn't always feel that way, does it? It feels like loneliness. It feels like losing what was familiar, stepping into a place where the road ahead is uncertain. And in those moments, the enemy will whisper lies. He will tell you that you are forgotten. He will tell you that you don't belong. He will try to convince you that you are wasting your time, that nothing is happening, that you are missing out on the life you were supposed to have. But I want you to hear this today. What feels like a delay is actually a divine setup. What feels like a loss is actually a gain. Because in the silence, in the solitude, something powerful is happening. You are being prepared. You are being strengthened. You are being taught how to stand firm when no one is watching, so that when the time comes for you to stand before many, your foundation will not be shaken. And so I ask you, will you trust the process? Will you trust that this season of being set apart is not a punishment but a preparation? Will you dare to believe that what feels like loneliness is actually an invitation? Because there is a reason you no longer fit where you used to. There is a reason the old things don't satisfy you anymore. You weren't meant to stay where you were. You were meant to rise. You were meant to walk a different road. You were meant for something greater. Have you ever had a door slam shut in your face? Have you ever made plans, built dreams, prayed over opportunities only to watch them slip right through your fingers? Maybe you thought you were heading in the right direction. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and then suddenly it wasn't. The job didn't come through, the relationship fell apart, the opportunity vanished, and now you find yourself standing in the middle of uncertainty, wondering why, wondering if you made a mistake, if you misheard God, if you took a wrong turn somewhere along the way. But I want you to hear me today. When God has chosen you for something greater, He will not allow you to settle for anything less. When you are being called into divine purpose, not every road will be open to you. Not every opportunity will be for you. Not every place you thought you were supposed to go will be where He intends to take you. And that is not rejection, it is redirection. Because when you belong to Him, when your life is in His hands, nothing happens by accident. No closed door, no missed opportunity, no unexpected change of plans is wasted. It may feel like loss, but in reality, it is protection. It may feel like confusion, but in truth, it is clarity disguised as disappointment. Because if you could see what He sees, if you knew what He knows, you would be thanking Him for every no, for every delay, for every moment when He led you away from something you thought you wanted. Think of Joseph. He had dreams of greatness, dreams that one day he would lead, that he would make a difference. But how did his journey begin? Not with open doors, not with easy steps. He was betrayed, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. At any point, he could have believed that God had forgotten him, that he had taken a wrong turn, that his dreams were nothing more than foolishness. But what he did not see in those moments of pain was that every detour was leading him to his destiny. Every setback was setting him up for something greater than he could have ever imagined. And maybe that is where you are right now. Maybe you are standing before a closed door, facing an uncertain future, wondering why things haven't worked out the way you thought they would. But let me tell you something, God's redirections are never mistakes. He is not punishing you, He is positioning you. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see that every disappointment was a step toward your destiny. That the door that shut in your face was the very thing that kept you from walking into something that was never meant for you. So don't fight the closed doors. Don't waste your energy trying to force something that is not part of His plan. Instead, trust that the one who called you is the same one who is guiding your every step. Trust that He knows where He is leading you. Trust that when the time is right, the right doors will open and no one will be able to shut them. Because those who are chosen are not led by chance, they are led by purpose. And when you learn to embrace His redirections, you will begin to see that nothing was ever lost. You were never wandering, you were never forgotten, you were simply being led to something far greater than you ever could have imagined. There is something inside of you that refuses to settle, no matter how much you try to fit in, no matter how much you attempt to follow the expected path, there is a pull. Something deep within that keeps whispering, this is not all there is. You've felt it, haven't you? That stirring in your spirit, that restlessness when life starts to feel too small for the dream inside you. You go through the motions, doing what is expected, trying to be content, but something keeps calling you higher. Something keeps telling you there is more, and the truth is, you can't outrun it. You can't ignore it for long. Oh, you might try by distracting yourself, by filling your days with busyness, by chasing after things that promise satisfaction but never truly deliver. But at the end of the day, when the noise fades and the world grows quiet, that call remains. Because those who are chosen for something greater can never be fully content with anything less. Maybe you've even tried to walk away from it. Maybe you've told yourself that it's too much, that it's too hard, that it would be easier to just blend in, to live a normal life, to stop reaching for something you cannot see. But deep down, you know you were not made for the ordinary. You know that comfort will never satisfy the calling inside of you. Look at the men and women throughout history who were called by God. Not one of them was allowed to stay where they were. Abraham was called to leave everything familiar behind and step into the unknown. Moses was drawn out of a quiet life in the wilderness to stand before Pharaoh. Esther was pulled from obscurity and placed in a position that would change a nation. None of them asked for it. None of them expected it. But when the call came, they could not ignore it. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you feel the weight of something bigger than yourself. A purpose you cannot fully understand yet. Maybe you've been feeling uncomfortable in the place you once found peace, restless in a life that used to satisfy you. That is not a mistake. That is not coincidence. That is the evidence that you are being prepared for more. But hear me, this calling is not for the faint of heart. Those who are chosen are tested. They are stretched. They are taken through seasons where they feel like they are walking in the dark, where the steps ahead are uncertain, where faith is the only thing holding them together. And it is in those moments that they have to decide, will I follow the call even when I don't understand it? Will I trust the one who is leading me even when I can't see where he is taking me? Because this is the choice every chosen one must make, to stay where it is safe or to step out into the unknown, to settle for a life of comfort or to embrace the life of purpose they were created for. And so I ask you today, what will you do with the call that is stirring inside of you? Will you push it aside, tell yourself it's too hard, too risky, too uncertain? Or will you dare to believe that you were made for more? Will you dare to follow even when the road ahead is unclear? Because those who are chosen cannot remain where they are. The call will not leave them. The fire inside them will not go out. And no matter how long they try to stay where it is comfortable, they will always be drawn back to the place where they were meant to be. There is a weight that comes with being chosen, a responsibility, a burden that presses upon your heart in ways you cannot always explain. It is the feeling that you are carrying something bigger than yourself, something sacred, something that must be protected. Maybe you felt it, the sense that your life is not your own, that the choices you make are not just about you. While others seem to move through life without hesitation, without a second thought, you feel the weight of every decision. There is a caution in your steps, an awareness that you cannot simply do what everyone else does. You may have even tried. You may have tried to follow the crowd, to blend in, to live without the weight of conviction. But every time you step outside of what you know is right, something inside of you pulls you back. Because when you are chosen, you cannot live as others do. You cannot speak as others speak, walk as others walk, chase what others chase. There is a call upon you to live differently, to hold yourself to a higher standard, to walk a road that is not always easy, but one that leads to something far greater. Look at the lives of those who carried a divine purpose. They were set apart not by their own will, but by the hand of God. They could not go where others went. They could not do what others did. Samson was given strength, but he was also given a vow Daniel was given wisdom, but he was also given discipline. Even Jesus himself walked the earth with a purpose so great that he could not allow distractions, could not be swayed by the opinions of men, could not take the easy path. And when you are chosen, the weight of purpose will rest upon you in the same way. It will keep you from making choices that seem small to others but are significant in your calling. It will convict you in ways that those around you may not understand. There will be moments when you must walk away from things that others freely embrace. Moments when you must turn down opportunities that seem good but are not right. Moments when you must walk a lonely road because you refuse to compromise what you know to be true. And that is not always easy. There will be times when you will question why you cannot simply do what others do, why the weight of conviction is so heavy on you while others seem to live without consequence. There will be times when you feel alone, when you wonder if it is worth it. But let me remind you today, there is a reason you feel the weight of purpose. There is a reason you cannot live as others do. You were not made for an ordinary life. You were not called to blend in. You were chosen to stand out, to shine, to live in such a way that when others look at you, they see something different. Because when you walk in the way of your calling, you may stand alone for a season, but you will never walk without purpose. You may feel the weight of conviction, but you will never live without direction. And when the time comes, when you look back on your journey, you will not regret the things you gave up. You will not mourn the roads you did not take, because you will see that every sacrifice was worth it. You will see that the weight you carried was never a burden, it was an honor. There comes a moment in the life of every person chosen for a greater purpose when they realize they cannot turn back. They cannot go back to the way things were. They cannot unsee what has been revealed to them, cannot unknow the truth that has been planted deep within their soul. Because when God calls you, he doesn't just call you to a task. He calls you to a transformation. He shifts the very core of who you are. He takes your old desires, your old ways of thinking, and he begins to replace them with something new. And though the world around you may look the same, you are no longer the same. And that is why you do not fit where you used to. That is why certain conversations no longer interest you, why certain places no longer feel right, why certain habits that once brought you comfort now bring conviction. It is not because you are better than others. It is because you have been set apart for something greater. But with this transformation comes a choice. Because though you have been called, though you have been chosen, you still must decide, will you embrace the path before you or will you shrink back? Will you trust that he knows what he is doing even when you do not understand? Because the road of purpose is not always an easy one. It will stretch you. It will challenge you. There will be days when you question if you have what it takes, days when fear whispers that you are not enough, days when the weight of the calling feels too heavy to carry, and in those moments you will be tempted to turn back, to return to what is familiar, to settle for what is comfortable. You will be tempted to believe that an ordinary life is easier than an extraordinary calling. But hear me today, you were not created to shrink back. You were not made to live in the shadows of fear and doubt. There is a fire inside of you, placed there by the one who called you, and no amount of fear, no amount of struggle, no amount of delay can put it out. Look at the ones who came before you, the ones who chose to press on when everything in them wanted to quit. The ones who stood when others fell, who walked forward when the road was uncertain, who believed even when they could not see. They were not the strongest, they were not the most qualified, but they were willing. And that is all he asks of you today. Not perfection, not strength beyond measure, but willingness. A heart that says, Lord, I do not know where this road leads, but I trust you. I do not feel qualified, but I trust you. I do not always understand, but I trust you. Because the moment you say yes to that calling, the moment you decide that you will no longer run, no longer hide, no longer settle, that is the moment everything changes. That is the moment when you step into the fullness of what was always meant for you. So do not be afraid of the road ahead. Do not fear what is uncertain. Do not let the weight of your calling cause you to retreat. You were chosen for a reason. You were set apart for a purpose. And the one who called you will never leave you. So stand, step forward, walk in the fullness of your calling, because you were never meant to turn back. You were meant to rise.